Welcome to Thalira Tales, where stories bloom in silence, carrying emotion, mystery, and hidden truth. Step in and let the tale unfold.
After the farewell dinner with my ex-husband, I moved to Oregon alone to start a new life. He, on the other hand, fulfilled his dream of marrying his secretary. However, a casual comment from a guest at their wedding reception was all it took for my ex-husband to lose his mind on the spot. I pushed open the heavy glass door of the restaurant that held so many of our memories. A brass bell chimed softly. The familiar aroma of filet mignon with peppercorn sauce, a scent I once considered the smell of happiness, hit me instantly. 8 years ago, my husband, Leo, had proposed to me at that exact corner table. Today, he had reserved the same table and ordered the same filet mignon he loved so much for our final goodbye. On paper, we were about to stop being husband and wife, but this dinner was the last ritual to sever any remaining emotional ties. He arrived 15 minutes late. The crisp white button-down he was wearing was the exact same one I had ironed flawlessly the week before, right before packing my things from our condo. Leo pulled out his chair and sat down without an apology, without even looking at me. His eyes were glued to his cell phone, his fingers swiping frantically across the screen. Every now and then, a smug smirk appeared on that face I had once loved madly. I knew exactly who he was texting. Noelle, his ultra-young secretary, the one who had wedged herself into our marriage. The waiter brought our food. Leo's steak sizzled on its cast-iron plate, giving off a fragrant smoke. He picked up his knife and fork, cutting a piece and chewing mechanically. "I ordered what you like," I said, breaking the oppressive silence. "Yeah," he replied dryly, not taking his eyes off his screen. I looked at the man sitting across from me. His coldness didn't hurt anymore. It only brought me an immense sense of relief. The glass of red wine on the table trembled slightly in my hand. I took a sip. Its bitterness helped calm my nerves. "Once the paperwork is finalized, I've already bought my ticket," I said in a monotone voice. "I'm moving to Oregon as soon as this is over." This time, his fingers stopped. He looked up. A fleeting look of surprise crossed his face before returning to his usual indifference. "Oregon? What are you going to do out there?" "My grandmother left me a small cottage in Oakhaven, a little town on the coast. I'm going to settle down there." I thought he might ask something else. Maybe a feigned attempt to get me to stay, or at least a clumsy wish for good luck. But no. Leo shrugged as if I had just given him the weather forecast for tomorrow. "Suit yourself. It's for the best," he said. And that smirk returned. "Noelle and I are busy planning the wedding anyway. She deserves a top-tier ceremony. Noelle isn't like you. She knows what she wants, and she knows exactly how to make me happy." I almost laughed out loud. He was right. I wasn't like Noelle. I didn't know how to play the damsel in distress. I didn't know how to use tears to demand things. And I certainly didn't know how to sleep with someone else's husband. But I didn't say that. I just nodded. "Well, congratulations to you both." The dinner ended quickly, in utter silence. He didn't even look at me when he stood up to pay the check. He left in a rush, probably sprinting back to his secretary, who was surely waiting for him. I sat there alone, staring at my barely touched steak. I caught the waiter's attention and asked for a to-go box. Not out of pity, but because I refused to waste a marriage's last supper. No matter how bland and cold it had been, it was finally over. I went back to our condo, the place that had once been our home. The silence was deafening. 8 years ago, Leo and I had drained our savings to buy this apartment in downtown Chicago. I still remembered the day they handed us the keys. We cried tears of joy. We painted the walls ourselves. We picked out every piece of furniture together. I really thought we would grow old here. I stood in the middle of the living room. The cream-colored sofa we had argued over so much was now draped in a white sheet. The wall, once filled with our wedding photos, was bare, showing nothing but the marks left by the nails. Everything was still there, but its soul was gone. I started boxing up 8 years of memories, now reduced to a few cardboard boxes. I opened the closet, my clothes on the left, his on the right. I carefully folded my dresses and blouses. A couple of his shirts were still mixed in with my things. I picked them up. The familiar scent of fabric softener still clung to the fabric. That smell used to mean peace. Now, I shoved them all into a separate bag for their new owner. I opened the bottom drawer of the dresser, where I kept our keepsakes. A small wooden box held our old photos. The first picture we took together in college, our smiles still so innocent. Our wedding day, me glowing in my white dress, him looking at me with infinite tenderness. 8 years. Where had that look gone? I didn't cry. My tears had dried up the day I found his text messages. I only felt a bone-deep exhaustion. I tucked the wooden box into the bottom of my suitcase. I wouldn't throw it away, but I would never open it again either. It belonged to yesterday's chapter. A chapter that died alongside our marriage. I spent the whole afternoon cleaning. When the apartment was almost empty, holding nothing but his belongings, I pulled out my phone and sent him a text. I've packed my things. Keep whatever you want from the rest. I'm only taking my clothes and personal items. The shared keepsakes are in the desk drawer. Do what you want with them. A minute later, his reply came, as brief and cruel as always. Okay, thanks. I took one last look around the condo. Goodbye. Goodbye to 8 years of my youth. I left my key on the oak coffee table, right next to the TV remote. A sharp click echoed in the empty room. I rolled my suitcase to the front door and pulled it shut behind me without looking back even once. I felt light, as if a massive weight I had been carrying for way too long had just been lifted off my shoulders. Freedom. I was finally free. On our court date, the Chicago sky wasn't rainy or sunny. The air was humid and heavy, much like my mood a few months prior, but today my heart was strangely calm. I wore a simple beige wrap dress and light makeup. I didn't want to look like a victim on my last day as a wife. Leo was there too. He wore a sharp suit and his hair was slicked back, but the dark circles under his eyes betrayed his exhaustion. Maybe he was drained from the legal proceedings, or maybe from trying to keep his pregnant mistress happy. An older judge with reading glasses looked at us with a hint of compassion. Have you both thought this through? Marriage is a lifelong commitment. Yes, Your Honor, we are certain, we answered in unison. It was quick. Signatures, stamps. The judge declared us legally divorced. 8 years of a shared life ended with a thin sheet of paper. I received my divorce decree, a certificate of my single status, which felt both heavy and incredibly light at the same time. Just as we stepped out of the courtroom, Leo's cell phone rang. He answered hastily, his tone shifting from cold to sickeningly sweet. I'm on my way out, babe. Don't move. Wait for me. He hung up and brushed past me like a stranger, walking briskly toward the exit. He was in such a rush he almost collided with a woman walking the opposite way. He didn't say a single word of goodbye. I stood there, watching his back disappear down the hallway. I smiled. An ending like this was perfectly fine. I was in a hurry, too. I had dropped my bags off at Maddie's house the day before. Now all I had to do was grab them and head straight to Union Station. Maddie, my absolute best friend in the world, was already waiting for me. As soon as she saw me, she ran up and pulled me into a tight hug. Aria, are you okay? Her voice was laced with worry. I'm fine, I said, patting her back. Better than ever, actually. Maddie looked me up and down and frowned. Yeah, right. You're paler than a ghost. How are you going to survive out there all by yourself? She shoved a heavy canvas tote bag into my hands. Here, I packed you some gourmet cheeses, local artisan charcuterie, and a bag of that Chicago roast coffee you love. I know you're not used to the food out there. When you get homesick, eat this so you don't feel so alone. I laughed, a lump forming in my throat. At my lowest point, I still had someone who genuinely cared about me. Thanks, Maddie. You're the only one who truly gets me. What is there to get? She grumbled. Now that you're leaving, you have to live your best life. Look gorgeous, get insanely rich, and make that bastard die of envy. And don't you dare shed another tear over that idiot. We sat in a coffee shop at the station, talking about everything and nothing. Maddie gave me 1,000 pieces of advice, from how to deal with contractors to watching out for small-town men. She talked so much that all I could do was nod and smile. I knew she was just trying to cheer me up, to fill the silence of our last moments together. It was time to board. We hugged tightly at the gate. Take care of yourself. Aria, she whispered. If anything happens, call me. You too. I'll call you the second I get there. She let go, but her expression suddenly turned hesitant. Listen, Arya. There's something I don't know if I should tell you. What is it? I frowned. At this point, what else could possibly hurt me? Just say it. Maddie took a deep breath and leaned in close. Noelle is pregnant. I froze for a split second. Not out of shock, but out of the sheer irony of it. So that was it. That's why he was in such a mad rush to finalize the divorce. That's why he didn't fight me for any of our assets, as long as I signed the papers quickly. Ah. I let out a soft chuckle. Well, double the joy for them. That's not all, Maddie continued. Her face twisted in disgust. They are planning an obscenely lavish wedding. My husband heard through the grapevine that it's going to be at the Crystal Plaza. They rented out the entire main ballroom. That Noelle girl wants the wedding of the century just to show off to everyone. Typical gold-digging behavior. Let them do what they want. I shook my head. I honestly don't care anymore. And I really didn't. The pain had scarred over. Hearing news about them now just felt ridiculous. A greedy man and a calculating woman. They were made for each other. But I just worry. Maddie insisted. I have to go. I interrupted her gently. The train won't wait. I gave her one last quick hug and turned around with absolute certainty. I walked through the ticketing gate without looking back. I could feel Maddie's eyes following me. Once in my seat, I turned off my phone. As the train pulled out of Chicago, leaving the gray urban sprawl behind to head toward the expansive, green landscapes of the Pacific Northwest, I knew a new life was waiting for me. And in that life, there was absolutely no room for Leo or Noelle. I took out my phone, popped out the old SIM card, snapped it in half, and tossed it into the trash can. I blocked every possible avenue of contact. A clean break. Goodbye, past. The train ride took days. I barely slept, burying myself in an American Architectural Digest, trying to reconnect with the passions I had sidelined. When the train finally slowed down and the intercom announced our arrival in Oregon, my heart raced. I stepped off the train, and the crisp, damp air of the Pacific Northwest filled my lungs. It was incredibly pure and clean, completely different from the stale city air. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, and the sun was bright but gentle. I collected my luggage. Everything was unfamiliar, the laid-back vibe, the people, even the scent of pine in the air, but I wasn't scared. I only felt a strange, buzzing excitement. I grabbed a cab to take me the rest of the way to Oak Haven. The driver, a friendly older guy in a flannel shirt, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. First time in Oregon, miss? Not exactly, I replied with a smile. I came here once when I was a kid to visit my grandmother. Now I'm moving into her house. The driver looked pleasantly surprised. Well, welcome back. Oak Haven is a gorgeous town. You're gonna love it. The car left the highway and wound its way through coastal roads. Strip malls faded into dense, towering pine forests, lush green hills, and charming wood-shingled houses. The scenery was so peaceful that I rolled down my window and took a deep breath. The air smelled of wet earth, pine needles, and salty ocean spray. I knew I had made the right choice. The cab pulled up to an old stone and wood fence covered in ivy. With a faded blue wooden gate, I paid the driver and dragged my heavy suitcase through the entrance. My grandmother's house stood before me. It wasn't a sprawling mansion, but a ridiculously cozy two-story craftsman cottage with a slate roof. What truly took my breath away was the garden. It was an explosion of color. Climbing roses scaled the trellises. Deep blue and violet hydrangeas formed massive shrubs, and there was even a small apple tree heavy with fruit. Before passing away, my grandmother had hired a local company to maintain the house and the grounds. I slid the old brass key into the lock. The heavy wooden door creaked open smoothly. Inside, everything was spotless and inviting. The furniture was solid wood, rustic and timeless. A massive riverstone fireplace anchored the living room, right next to a floral-upholstered wingback chair my grandmother used to love. The late afternoon light spilled through the large bay windows, casting golden hues across the hardwood floors. I dropped my bags and walked through the house. The quaint kitchen with copper pots hanging on the wall. My bedroom on the second floor with a balcony that overlooked the garden. Everything was perfectly preserved, as if my grandmother knew I would eventually come home. I pushed open the balcony doors. The autumn breeze carried the scent of blooming roses. I stood there with my eyes closed. All the glow with agony of my dead marriage seemed to evaporate into the coastal wind. I was no longer Arya, the betrayed wife. I was Arya, my grandmother's granddaughter, the owner of this beautiful home. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. After a week of resting and organizing my life, I started job hunting. I had a master's degree in interior design and decent corporate experience from Chicago. But I didn't want to commute to Portland or Seattle. I wanted a quiet life right here in Oak Haven. No rat race, no cutthroat competition. I polished my resume and emailed it to small local design studios. Luck found me sooner than expected. 3 days later, I got an email inviting me for an interview at Forman Soul, a small but highly respected boutique firm right in town. I prepped nervously, choosing a chic, tailored blazer, and brushed up on my industry jargon. The studio was tucked away down an alley covered in blooming bougainvillea. I was interviewed by Matt, the owner. He looked to be in his early 40s, with casually tousled brown hair and warm, kind green eyes. He reviewed my portfolio carefully, nodding approvingly at my past commercial projects. "Your resume is seriously impressive," Matt said, his voice deep and easygoing. "But why choose a small firm in Oak Haven instead of a massive corporate agency back in Chicago?" I smiled and gave him the honest truth. "I moved back here for my grandmother's house. I love the peace of this town. I want to do the work I'm passionate about, but I also want time to tend to my garden and actually enjoy my life. I don't think the quality of design is dictated by the size of the firm." Matt looked at me intently for a moment before grinning. "I feel the exact same way." I couldn't stand the noise in the city. The interview turned into a fantastic conversation about design trends and personal aesthetics. Matt seemed like a wonderful boss, passionate, grounded, and deeply respectful of his team. The next morning, while I was watering the garden, my phone rang. It was Matt. "Hey, Arya. Calling with good news. Can you start this coming Monday? We just landed a project for a boutique eco-lodge, and we desperately need someone with your exact taste." I was so thrilled I almost dropped the watering can. "Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt." I had a job I loved, in a place I loved. My new life had officially begun. My new routine locked in quickly. I woke up every morning at 6:30, not to a blaring iPhone alarm, but to birds chirping outside my window. I'd walk down to the local bakery, grab a fresh blueberry scone and a latte. The smell of butter and roasted espresso fueled my mornings. I walked to work. The studio was only 15 minutes away. The path was shaded by giant evergreens and crossed an old stone bridge over a babbling creek. My coworkers were fantastic. There were only 5 of us, including Matt. They welcomed me with open arms, patiently helped me figure out the local suppliers, and always raved about the baked goods I sometimes brought in. Matt trusted me implicitly, handing over the reins for the Eco Lodge project and giving me total creative freedom. The work consumed me in the best way, leaving me zero time to dwell on the past. On weekends, I no longer had to cook and clean for a man who didn't appreciate it. I spent my time entirely on myself. I rode my bike along the coast, browsed local antique markets, or simply sat in the garden with a good book. I learned how to prune the rose bushes and planted a small herb garden. My hands were often covered in dirt, but my heart was completely at peace. This life was the polar opposite of my suffocating 8-year marriage. I felt reborn. I laughed more. I slept deeper. On Friday afternoon, 1 week before Leo's wedding, Maddie FaceTimed me. "Oh my God, Arya, look at you. Are you glowing, or is it just the lighting? You look so healthy and flushed. That Pacific Northwest air is doing wonders for you." "I guess it is," I laughed. "Work is great, the air is clean. How are things with you?" We chatted for a while. Right before hanging up, Maddie hesitated. "Hey, Arya. Next week. Next week is that bastard's wedding. Are you going to be okay?" I knew Maddie was just being protective. I looked out the window. The evening sun was painting the garden in strokes of gold. "I'm totally fine," I said evenly. "Next week, I have to drive out to visit an artisanal tile maker. I'm way too busy figuring out the bathroom finishes for the lodge to care. Let them be happy. I'm busy planting flowers and building a career." Maddie stared at me through the screen for a long moment, then sighed in relief. "Yeah, you're right. Staying busy is the best revenge. Screw them. I hung up and went back to sketching. The day of his wedding, I genuinely couldn't care less. That Saturday finally arrived. It was late afternoon in Oregon. I had just finished watering the hydrangeas when my phone started buzzing relentlessly. It was a FaceTime call from Maddie. I smiled, wiped my hands on my apron, and answered. Maddie's face popped up, looking absolutely feral with excitement. She was in her pajamas in her living room, but I could hear a chaotic mix of music and loud voices playing from another device in the background. Aria! What are you doing? Maddie screamed into the phone. Just finished in the garden. Why is it so loud over there? Are you at a party? Not a chance in hell. My husband is. Maddie rolled her eyes, then dropped her voice to a dramatic whisper. He's at Leo and that homewrecker's wedding. I forced him to live text and record everything so you could get the ultimate closure. With that, Maddie flipped her camera to show her husband's phone screen propped up on her laptop. I didn't even need to watch. Maddie's shrill commentary was enough. Holy crap, Aria, the sheer amount of money they blew on this. My husband says they rented out the massive grand ballroom at the Crystal Plaza. Red carpet from the valet, imported orchids literally everywhere. They even hired a literal symphony orchestra. That's insane, I frowned. Tell me about it. My husband sent a picture. Maddie tilted the phone to show a blurry photo. They say Noelle's dress is a custom Vera Wang dripping in Swarovski crystals, easily worth tens of thousands. She's even wearing a damn tiara like she's a Disney princess. And the worst part? She won't stop rubbing her belly while greeting people. Just to make sure everyone knows. The absolute nerve of that woman. I just shrugged. And Leo? Oh my God. He looks like he's about to burst with arrogance, Maddie continued, thoroughly disgusted. White tuxedo jacket, hair slicked back. Walking around with her on his arm like they're Hollywood royalty. My husband said he has this smug look on his face like he conquered the universe. He really thinks that marrying a young girl who's going to give him an heir makes him the smartest guy in the room. What a bunch of clowns putting on a show. Listening to Maddie rant actually made me want to laugh. I looked out at my garden, where the red roses were in full, glorious bloom. I took a deep breath of the crisp air. Hey, Maddie, I interrupted gently. Tell me what you're making for dinner tonight. Maddie went dead silent. I am giving you the tea of the century, and you're asking me about dinner? Because their story doesn't interest me anymore. I smiled softly. Let them show off. Let them think they're on top of the world. That's their problem. Right now, I need to put a chicken in the oven. Matt and the guys from the studio are coming over for dinner. Maddie stared at me through the screen, then suddenly burst out laughing. Oh, Aria, you have truly reached enlightenment. You're right. Why waste energy on trash? Go roast your chicken and make it fabulous. If anything crazy happens, I'll call you for the next episode. We hung up. I took off my apron, washed my hands, and started prepping dinner. Their laughter, their luxury, the whole spectacle, it was half a continent away. For the first time in 8 years, I realized I didn't feel a single ounce of jealousy or pain. They just felt like strangers. My life was finally, truly mine. I figured the wedding saga ended with that call. I had a wonderful evening with Matt and my coworkers. We drank local Pinot Noir, ate herb-roasted chicken, and passionately debated the lodge project. The project was moving perfectly, and Matt couldn't stop praising my vision. But the next morning, as I was making coffee and stepping out onto the balcony to breathe in the morning air, my phone rang again. Maddie. By then it was late afternoon in Chicago. I was a bit surprised. What's up? Another live broadcast? I joked, taking a sip of coffee. But Maddie's voice wasn't filled with yesterday's annoyance. She sounded euphoric, like she had just won the Powerball. Aria. Aria, are you sitting down or standing up? Her voice was a literal shriek. I'm standing. Why are you so hyped? Sit down right now. Sit down because I am about to tell you something that is going to knock you on your ass. The greatest drama in history just concluded. My husband just got home and gave me the full debrief. I literally cannot stop laughing. Intrigued, I pulled out a patio chair and sat down. Okay, I'm sitting. What happened? Ha ha ha! Maddie let out a breathless cackle. Turns out, there was an unexpected guest at the reception last night. Guess who? I frowned. How would I know? Your Uncle Bruce. Your grandmother's loudmouth friend. I almost choked on my coffee. Uncle Bruce? What was he doing there? He doesn't even know Leo. That's the best part, Maddie said melodramatically. Apparently, Leo's dad did some real estate deals with your Uncle Bruce years ago, and they still keep in touch. And you know your uncle. He has no filter, especially when there's an open bar. He had just flown back from Oregon after visiting his son and had a layover in Chicago. I started picturing Uncle Bruce, with his booming voice, right in the middle of that superficial wedding. And then what happened? I asked, genuinely hooked. My husband said toward the end of dinner, Uncle Bruce was already several drinks deep. He was sitting at a table with some old business buddies and started holding court. Maddie dropped her voice, doing a terrible impression of my uncle. You guys know what? I just got back from Oregon. Went to see my boy, and swung by Oak Haven. That gorgeous little coastal town. My stomach did a flip. Oak Haven. He had run into me. Exactly, Maddie yelled. My husband said Uncle Bruce kept shouting over the music. I ran into little Aria, my late friend's granddaughter. Man, she looks incredible, sharp as a tack, living out there like an absolute queen in this gorgeous craftsman house with a massive rose garden her grandma left her. I sat frozen. It was true. I had bumped into Uncle Bruce at the farmer's market last weekend. He flagged me down, we chatted for a bit, and I invited him over, but he said he had to rush to the airport. I never imagined it would lead to this. Maddie kept talking at a mile a minute. Your uncle just started broadcasting your entire life to anyone in earshot, and with that booming voice of his. The tables next to them heard everything. A vague sense of dread washed over me. This story being told at Leo's wedding wasn't going to end well. My husband said, Maddie continued, vibrating with excitement, that right as Uncle Bruce started talking about you, Leo and Noelle were doing their rounds, thanking the guests at the very next table. They heard every single word. I held my breath. Maddie cleared her throat, resuming her one-woman show. Uncle Bruce is yelling, Aria is killing it. She's the lead designer at a top firm out there. Her boss absolutely worships her, says she just single-handedly landed them a massive commercial lodge project. She's got her grandmother's brains and hustle. I could only imagine the look on Leo's face. He had always belittled my career, calling me a complacent wife who mooched off his success. But wait, Aria, here comes the masterpiece, Maddie screamed, unable to contain herself. Now for the climax. One of the guys at your uncle's table goes, Wow, good for her. She must be making a decent salary out there, huh? And your Uncle Bruce waves his hand and goes, Salary? Her salary is just for shoe money. Her grandmother adored her. She didn't just leave her that coastal estate. She left her a massive trust fund. Word is, it's worth millions. Little Aria is a low-key millionaire hiding out in Oregon, living a life of luxury, free as a bird, not having to put up with any idiot men. I was stunned. It was true that my grandmother had left me a substantial inheritance, but I had never discussed the actual numbers with anyone. I had no idea Uncle Bruce knew the details, let alone that he would weaponize them in the middle of my ex's wedding. God, Aria, my husband said the second the word millions left your uncle's mouth, Leo's face went from white to green. He looked like his knees were going to buckle, and Noelle was standing right next to him with her jaw on the floor. She couldn't believe it. The people at the surrounding tables started whispering. The rumor spread like wildfire. The groom's ex-wife is secretly a millionaire. Turns out he dumped a literal heiress to marry his secretary. The gossip was deafening. And you know what? Maddie said, her voice dripping with triumph. Right when Leo was practically catatonic, realizing he threw away a gold mine, your Uncle Bruce delivered the fatal blow. My heart pounded. There was more? The rumor is buzzing through the ballroom. Leo and Noelle are paralyzed. Noelle is trying to yank Leo's arm to pull him away, but he's cemented to the floor. And then Uncle Bruce, completely oblivious, keeps talking to his buddy. I pictured the scene. An eerie silence falling over Uncle Bruce's section of the room as everyone strained to listen. Maddie did the voice again. But in this day and age, my friend, you gotta watch out for scammers. You let a gold digger get her hooks in you, and you're done for. Kind of like the groom here, Leo. I gasped. He actually said that out loud? Pretty much, Maddie squealed. My husband said your uncle just kept going. I was at the bank the other day taking care of some paperwork, and I ran into Frank, the branch manager. Good buddy of mine. Frank tells me the funniest thing. Says that Noelle girl Leo's secretary, the bride tonight, came into the branch last week and threw a massive fit. Leo and Noelle's faces, according to Maddie's husband, were utterly drained of blood. Frank tells me, Maddie continued the reenactment, that this Noelle girl was making a withdrawal and complaining loudly to the teller, talking so loud the whole lobby heard her. She said, "I am so sick of this. I thought I hit the jackpot with a rich boss, but he's totally broke. We're about to get married, and I'm still lending him money. I just had to loan him $5,000 to cover the catering deposit for this stupid wedding. My luck is garbage." A graveyard silence fell over the ballroom. Maddie's husband said you could literally hear the ice clinking in people's glasses. Two explosive truths detonated at the exact same time in front of hundreds of high society guests. Truth number one: the discarded ex-wife, Aria, was actually an heiress with a coastal estate and millions in the bank. Truth number two: the new bride, Noelle, flaunting her designer gown, was an angry gold digger. And the groom, Leo, the man who loved to act like the king of Chicago, was dead, broke, and had to beg his fiancée for cash to pay for his own wedding. Aria. Maddie's voice trembled with sheer adrenaline. Leo snapped. He started shaking uncontrollably. He slowly turned his head to look at Noelle. And my husband said he looked like he wanted to murder her right there. I sat frozen on my balcony. The coffee in my mug had gone ice cold. I knew the greatest comedy and worst tragedy had just kicked off. I didn't move, keeping the phone pressed to my ear. Maddie was breathing heavy on the other line, like she had just run a marathon. My husband said. Maddie took a deep breath. The scene was cinematic. Leo was vibrating. The entire ballroom, which had been buzzing with music and laughter, went dead quiet. Hundreds of pairs of eyes were locked on the bride and groom. I could feel the humiliation from here. Leo, a man whose entire existence relied on appearances, who constantly needed to project success and dominance, was stripped naked in front of all his peers, partners, and family, exposed as a broke fool who got played. Noelle looked terrified, Maddie continued. She tried to grab Leo's arm, whispering, "Baby, let's go to the sweetheart table." Everyone is staring. But Leo didn't move an inch. He just glared at her. My husband said his eyes were completely bloodshot. The champagne flute in his hand was shaking so hard the champagne was spilling everywhere. And then, Maddie dropped her voice like she was telling a ghost story. He yelled. No, he didn't yell. He roared like a wounded animal. "Talk! What the hell is this about $5,000? You told people you were lending Emmy money?" Noelle stepped back, absolutely horrified. "No, baby, I swear I was just venting. Please believe me." "Believe you?" Leo let out a dark, twisted laugh. "So you can play me for a fool? So you can bleed me dry while I lose everything?" Maddie's husband noted that Leo couldn't even finish the sentence. He couldn't bring himself to say out loud that he had literally thrown away millions of dollars. The combination of that realization, Noelle's public betrayal, and the sheer humiliation of everyone knowing he was broke completely shattered his psyche. "Crack!" Maddie yelled into the phone. He crushed the champagne glass in his bare hand. Aria. He literally shattered it in his fist. Blood started dripping down his hand and onto the red carpet. I shuddered. I knew Leo had a nasty temper, but I never thought he'd lose his mind like this in public. Blood and champagne flew everywhere, Maddie relayed, splattering all over Noelle's custom Vera Wang dress. She screamed. Leo looked like he had suffered a psychotic break. He looked at his bleeding hand, then looked up at Noelle. "You played me!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "This is all your fault. You ruined me." His rage exploded. The bitter regret of losing me. The humiliation of Noelle's deception. The absolute fury of realizing he was the punchline of the joke. It all piled up and turned him feral. On his own wedding day, it finally clicked that he had dumped a loyal, wealthy, successful woman for a lying gold digger who had drained his last dime to throw a party for Instagram. He had thrown away a diamond to pick up a piece of painted glass. And then what? I asked, my throat dry. Chaos. Pure, unadulterated chaos. Maddie's voice was shaky. After screaming that she ruined him, he started destroying the reception. Destroying it? At his own wedding? My husband swore on his life, Maddie replied breathlessly. Leo swung his arm out and completely leveled a massive champagne tower on the next table. The sound of breaking glass was deafening. He grabbed the edge of a catering table and flipped the whole thing, lobster tails, oysters, caviar, all of it all over the floor. Guests were shrieking and backing away. And his parents? They were white as sheets. They ran up to him. His dad tried to bear hug him. Leo, what are you doing? Stop it, please. This is a disgrace. But Leo shoved his own father away. He was out of his mind. He pointed a bloody finger at Noelle, who was paralyzed in her stained white dress. Tell me, he screamed. What about the baby? Did you fake that too? His voice echoed off the high ceilings. That question was the spark that hit the powder keg. The crowd started murmuring loudly. Oh my God, the pregnancy is fake? No wonder she kept touching her stomach. What a psychopath. Noelle, backed into a corner, finally snapped. Her sweet, innocent act vanished. She screamed back at him. Are you insane? Are you calling my baby a lie? Shut up! Leo backhanded the air, shoving her away from him. The shove was so violent that Noelle, in her stilettos, lost her balance and fell backward. Oh my God, Maddie gasped. My husband said she fell hard and hit her stomach against the corner of an ice sculpture table. I held my breath. Even though I despised her, a baby was innocent. Is she okay? Noelle grabbed her stomach, went totally pale, and started screaming in agony. Seeing her on the floor, Leo froze for a second, probably terrified. But just then, Maddie paused for dramatic effect. Frank, the bank manager your uncle mentioned, who was there as a corporate sponsor of Leo's firm, stepped up into the mess. What did Frank do? Probably trying to score points with your uncle, Frank spoke up real loud, Maddie said. Mr. Leo, please, calm down. It is true that Noelle made a scene at my branch. I heard her myself saying you were broke and that she loaned you $5 grand. I can pull the security tape right now if you want. Maddie's husband said the room practically detonated after that. A literal bank manager confirming the rumor on the spot. It was the final nail in the coffin. Leo had nothing left to lose. His career, his pride, his marriage, his finances all obliterated in one night. He let out this guttural roar, Maddie said, and walked over to the head table where the 7-tier wedding cake was sitting. He flipped the entire table. Frosting and cake went flying into the crowd. Get out! He screamed. Everyone get the hell out. The wedding is over. The terrified guests scrambled for the exits. But they weren't just leaving. They had their iPhones out, recording the whole meltdown. A wedding of the century, exactly like Noelle wanted, but it was a century's worth of disaster. My husband bolted out of there too, Maddie finished. He said as he was running out, you could still hear Leo smashing centerpieces and Noelle sobbing and cursing at him. A pathetic, absolute circus. Karma moves fast, Arya. I hung up the phone, my chest tight. I stepped out onto the balcony and looked at my roses, sleeping under the Pacific Northwest dew. I thought I would feel vindicated knowing they got what they deserved, but I didn't. I just felt a profound sense of exhaustion and disgust. A life built on greed and lies had self-destructed in an instant. I slept terribly that night. The chaotic images of the reception looped in my brain. I woke up with dark circles. I decided I was done listening to Maddie's updates. Their story was officially over for me. I needed to focus on my reality. I spent all of Sunday drafting floor plans. The work helped wash away the grime of Chicago. But Sunday night, as I shut down my Mac, my phone buzzed. Maddie again. I sighed, debating whether to ignore it. But the buzzing was relentless. What now, Maddie? I'm exhausted. I don't want to hear anymore. Wait. Maddie's voice was vibrating with excitement again. This is the series finale. I promise. Once you hear this, you'll sleep like a baby. Fine, I grumbled. Make it quick. Listen, she insisted. My husband just told me. When he went down to the parking garage to get his car, he caught a scene even crazier than the ballroom. I surrendered. Okay, 5 minutes. My husband saw Leo and Noelle screaming at each other in the parking deck, Maddie said. Her parents were standing there looking like they were at a funeral, trying to pull her away. She didn't go to the ER? I asked, surprised, remembering the fall. Hell no, Maddie scoffed. It was all an act. My husband hid behind a concrete pillar and listened. Noelle completely dropped the victim routine. She was standing there with her hands on her hips, getting right in Leo's face. Maddie cleared her throat, doing her Noelle voice. You are out of your mind. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You ruined my wedding. Leo, whose hand was wrapped in a bloody napkin, screamed back. You ruined me. You're a liar. You've been stealing from me. And then Noelle just started laughing, Maddie said, a tone of disgust in her voice. A laugh that made my husband's skin crawl. Stealing from you? Do you even have money to steal? Who paid for this reception, Leo? Tell me. My $5,000 barely covered the appetizers. My parents had to take out a second mortgage on their house just to pay for this charade so you could look like a big shot. You're useless. You're a broke, useless loser. I froze. So Leo hadn't just bled Noelle for cash. He had squeezed her parents dry too. He had sunk so deep into his own ego that he destroyed everyone around him. My husband said, Maddie continued, that when Leo heard that, he was speechless. He didn't expect her to throw it in his face so viciously. Down in the parking lot, with no audience and no cameras, their true colors finally came out. There was no love. Just debt, lies, and pure hatred. Noelle's parents, seeing their daughter lose her mind, tried to shut her up. Honey, please, stop it. Let's just go home, her mom begged. But Noelle shoved her parents off and pointed a finger in Leo's chest. I'll tell you right now, Leo. I married you for your money, your title as a partner, and this wedding. And now you've destroyed it all. Leo, snapping out of his shock, gritted his teeth. You bitch. And then, Maddie lowered her voice to a whisper. Noelle launched her nuke. She put her hand on her stomach, but not lovingly this time. It was a threat, she said. Maddie whispered, listen to me very carefully. This baby is yours. You want it to live, or do you want it to die? You sign the downtown condo over to me tomorrow, and you wire me $500,000 in cash. If you don't, I am going to the clinic tomorrow morning to abort it. And then I'm going to your firm and telling the board exactly what kind of monster you are. My blood ran cold. Using an unborn child for extortion. It was beyond evil. What did Leo do? I asked quietly. My husband said Leo just stood there for a long time. And then, he started laughing. A laugh that was way scarier than his yelling. He laughed hysterically. When he finally stopped, he looked Noelle dead in the eyes and snarled, Keep dreaming. He pulled out his keys, sprinted to his Mercedes, and even though Noelle tried to block the car, he floored it, almost running her over. He peeled out of the garage, leaving Noelle and her parents standing in the concrete, surrounded by the ruins of their luxury wedding. My husband sprinted to his car and drove off. He didn't want to be around when the cops inevitably showed up. We sat in silence for a moment. Maddie, I have a weird feeling about the pregnancy. I do too, she interrupted. My husband said the fall looked nasty, but 10 minutes later she was in the parking lot screaming with incredible stamina. I bet the pregnancy was totally fake, or she manipulated a test just to trap him. She used it to force the wedding, and now she tried to use it to extort him. I let out a long sigh. Fake or real? Using a child like a pawn was sickening. Well, Arya, Maddie said, her voice finally sounding tired. Let's close the curtain. Two greedy, pathological liars who absolutely destroyed each other. Trash took itself out. Go to sleep. I need to crash too. Drama is exhausting. I hung up. I looked out into the night. Oak Haven was perfectly still. The sound of crickets filled the garden. I realized the hurricane in Chicago had passed, and it had absolutely nothing to do with me anymore. I texted Maddie and asked her never to update me on them again. I didn't want the toxic sludge of the past polluting my present. I threw myself into my work, fully focused on the lodge project. But a month later, during one of our regular calls, Maddie couldn't help herself. Arya, I have to say this. It's quick. Her voice was dead serious. Leo's life actually imploded. What now? His career is over. My husband says that after the meltdown, videos of him destroying the reception and screaming at Noelle leaked online. Even though PR tried to scrub them, all his major clients saw it. And what did they do? Pulled their accounts immediately. His biggest whale, a private equity firm from New York, sent a termination letter the next morning. Said they couldn't do business with an unstable executive who lacked moral integrity and abused his family in public. I stayed quiet. It was inevitable. In corporate America, reputation is everything. When he lost the New York account, the firm tanked, Maddie continued. The key designers, the good ones you used to work with, walked out en masse, said they refused to work for a lunatic who couldn't even make payroll. They left and took the smaller clients with them. That fast? I was genuinely shocked. Yep. He's desperate. My husband said he's spending every night at hotel bars, trying to buy drinks for mid-level clients just to save face. He's drinking so heavily that last week he was admitted to the ER for a bleeding ulcer, stayed 2 days, signed himself out AMA, and went right back to drinking. But it's useless. Nobody is boarding a sinking ship with a crazy captain. I shook my head. The career Leo had lorded over me, the success he used to make me feel small, collapsed into dust because of his own ego. I have to go, Maddie, I said. I've got a meeting with Matt. Yeah, you're right. She agreed. Those people don't deserve another second of your time. Live your beautiful life. I hung up and looked at the 3D rendering of the lodge lobby on my monitor. I had gone with a warm Pacific Northwest rustic aesthetic, reclaimed cedar, local artisan pottery, and massive windows letting in the forest light. I felt so proud of it. It was real. I was building something of value, unlike Leo's empire of sand. Months passed. I finalized the lodge design and began overseeing the construction phase. The days were long but incredibly fulfilling. One evening, Maddie called. Her tone was strange, almost pitying. Aria. My husband saw Leo today. Where? At a bar? No, she said softly. At a discount grocery store. My husband went to grab some stuff for a BBQ, and he saw this gaunt, homeless-looking guy scarfing down a pre-made sandwich in the corner. He did a double take. It was Leo. He looks that bad? My husband was shocked. Said Leo looked skeletal, had a patchy beard, greasy hair, and his clothes were filthy. He was eating the sandwich like a stray dog, looking over his shoulder constantly. He looks 10 years older. His firm filed for Chapter 7. He's drowning in debt. You know where he got the money for the wedding deposit? Loan sharks. He thought he'd pay them back with Noelle's parents' money or a new contract. But it all vanished. Now the sharks are hunting him down. The bank foreclosed on your old condo. My husband heard he's sleeping on the floor of his locked-out office. Last week, some guys caught him outside the building and beat the hell out of him. Hearing that, I didn't feel any vindication. Just a hollow, bitter sadness. At the end of the day, he was the man I had loved for 8 years. My husband thought about walking up to him, Maddie murmured. But Leo noticed someone staring, panicked, dropped half his sandwich, and literally sprinted out the door like a fugitive. Oh, and Noelle? The pregnancy was a total fake, just like we thought. Nobody in the city will hire her. Her parents were so humiliated and broke, they had to sell their house to cover the wedding debts. They packed up and moved out of state with her. Word is, they are living in a trailer park. The 2 people who had reveled in my destruction had paid the ultimate price for their greed. Sometimes, life balances the scales, I said softly, and hung up with a heavy heart. But that sadness was fleeting. I looked out at my garden, where the lavender was blooming in a sea of vibrant purple. I took a deep breath. Their lives, no matter how tragic, were no longer my burden. A week later, I presented the final lodge walkthrough to the investor, a notoriously difficult real estate developer from New York. I had meticulously prepared every detail. When I finished the presentation, the developer who Matt warned me never smiled stood up and started clapping. Spectacular, Aria, he said in a thick East Coast accent, looking genuinely impressed. This is exactly the soul I was looking for. You've done a masterful job. Matt, sitting next to me, beamed with pride. The project was greenlit without a single revision. Walking back to the studio, Matt turned to me. Aria, You blew him away. He's so thrilled he wants us to pitch for his next massive project, a luxury resort in Napa Valley. It's a team effort, but this was your vision. To celebrate, the partners decided to bump your salary by 30% starting this week. And you're getting a week of paid PTO. Go wherever you want. Recharge. Because Napa is waiting for you. I was so happy I could have skipped down the sidewalk. A massive raise, vacation time, and most importantly, profound professional validation. I realized that by walking away from Leo, I hadn't lost anything. I had found myself, and so much more. I decided to use my PTO to drive down the California coast. I rented a convertible and cruised down Highway 1 through Big Sur, staying in little coastal bed and breakfasts, eating fresh sourdough and goat cheese. I met incredible locals, talked about wine and art, and soaked in the sheer beauty of being alive. I finally understood that my worth wasn't tied to being someone's wife or the size of a bank account, but in my independence and my ability to build my own joy. When I returned to Oak Haven, my garden looked more vibrant than ever. I signed up for an advanced pottery class and joined a local hiking group. I wanted to keep growing. One afternoon, while I was reading in the garden, Maddie called. We talked often now, but only about my projects, her kids, and our future plans. We never brought up Leo or Noelle again. They had vanished from my reality like a bad dream fading in the morning light. I watched the late afternoon sun filter through the oak leaves, dancing on the grass. I realized that those 8 years of marriage, as agonizing as the end was, had taught me a priceless lesson. The divorce wasn't the end of my story. It was the prologue. It was the door to a new road, a road bathed in sunlight. I smiled. I knew the rest of the journey was only going to get better.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay. I'm freezing. I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, know it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.